It's Frank Gentile who's joining us in studio, although you were very polite about it. You said Gentile, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Frank Gentile joining us in studio. He is running for Oneida County Legislature in the 23rd District. You are challenging a longtime incumbent. Tell us about, let me wait on that. I want to get more into the signatures. You're explaining the signature process to us. There's a lot of rules.
As best I can, by the way. I've read them and know them. Yeah. I probably don't know all the rules, actually, so it's a very difficult process. Mm-hmm. It's not as easy as you would think.
Your signatures were disqualified. You did not have the appropriate number of signatures.
Appropriate ones. The news last night, I believe, made it sound like they were fraudulent signatures. The reason why they weren't fraudulent at all, they were just I didn't have enough.
And you knew that going in.
And I knew that going in.
So what was the story again that happened?
The time frame was short when we first decided to have beyond this line, so we had a short period of time, and I was right down to the last half hour to turn them in, and I was actually outside the train station waiting for my son to bring the other 37 signatures that I had, and when he got there, he says, "Dad, they were gone." Someone who had been collecting signatures for me had left them in the mailbox for him to pick up in a manila envelope. When he went to pick them up, the manila envelope was gone.
And you're not alleging that it was somebody stole them?
No, I'm not alleging anything. I just think that it was in a manila envelope in a mailbox. The post person may have picked it up. Somebody may have seen him pick it up and taken them. All I know is that 37 signatures were missing that we had collected to turn in, and which would have put me over the top as for the number that I needed.
So you're saying that you submitted the signatures that you had anyway just to see what would happen.
Yeah, you knew you were going to be disqualified,
right?
And you don't plan on challenging.
No, there's no sense of challenging. I know I didn't have. I had 87, I believe it was.
Okay.
So it wasn't a matter of. I was expecting the challenge, but I was advised just turn the signatures that you have in. And just go there. Go from there.
This was not the only line that you were looking to run on. Of course, you are in a Republican primary.
I'm in a Republican primary. I'm actually in a conservative and independence primary because my opponent, I received the conservative and independence endorsement, but he put in a challenge to be a write-in candidate on those lines because he wasn't happy with the fact that I had gotten the endorsements.
Your opponent is Emil Paparella. He's a longtime Oneida County legislator. At least 20 years. You think it might be 30?
I think it's up to 30, 31, something in there.
I see one of your issues here is term limits. Let's talk about that, and we'll get back into the hospital as well.
Okay.
Let's talk about term limits. You think a 10 to 12 years should be an appropriate term?
When I was going to the Independence Party to try and get their endorsement, I was talking to a couple other county legislators, and they says that they had been mulling around doing a term limit around 10 to 12 years, and that they thought they had all the votes, but they didn't. So that would have been passed a few years ago. And I just think if you look at our Congress right now, you've got congressmen and senators that have been in there for so long a period of time. For a local district person to be in there for as many years as my opponent has, I just think it's ridiculous.
Let me ask you on the no hospital. You are strong. Obviously, you wanted to run on the line. Why are you opposed to the hospital coming downtown?
Well, it's funny because when I was decided to do this, which we can get into, my son says, where do you stand on the hospital? I says, I just don't think the hospital needs to be downtown. I'd like to see our downtown be revived in a different way. I'd like to see it almost like a Armory Square. We've got the Comets now that are doing well, have done well over a few years. We're drawing people down to them. We've got Varick Street. We've got the Stanley and the Munson Williams Proctor. I'd like to see a little triangle down there and develop it like that, be able to bring people downtown for farmers markets, for street vending. And so when I met with Brett Truitt, that was our discussion initially. I got back into the No Hospital Downtown group and met more and more. So my opposition came from a different angle than just the way most of them were. I wanted to see downtown developed in a different way and didn't think a hospital was going to help that cause.
Now some people would say, and this is just to kind of give you a counterpoint on that, and on that point, that some people would say that if more restaurants or more bars were to go down there, it would just kind of take away from the business that would exist there now, because if you don't have an influx of population, you would then essentially be kind of cannibalizing the other businesses and restaurants. Do you think that would happen, or do you think there are other ways that?
Well, I think there are other ways to bring businesses other than that. I think we have Varick Street for the bars and stuff, and the mayor has been talking in the past few years that Bank Square's been developing and downtown's been developing. Well, it's my understanding that there's a lot of property that is able to be sold that hasn't been sold, and I think they've been holding it for this no hospital plan or for the hospital plan. So you don't know how many businesses wanted to go in there that weren't able to because of that. I think you're starting to see a revival downtown with the Comets being down there, with the Utica Pioneers being down there, and the auditorium being flourishing. That auditorium wasn't flourishing for many, many years.
No,
it was just sitting down there.
I can't believe the front of it.
So I think that, we've got the potential to draw in things, and now they want to put this hospital where they don't know. I think maybe yesterday they came out with a more definitive plan as far as what businesses were going to be taken and where it was going to be. But up until yesterday, and this plan was supposed to have already been decided on, we didn't know where it was going to be. I haven't even seen a sketch of the new hospital to see, does it look nice to be downtown? Is it going to be, just a very plain building that's going to take away from what we've been doing?
Right. Does it accent the downtown? I understand what you're saying.
Right. So, like I says, I came from the not putting a hospital downtown from a different angle. I wanted to see us develop it for a more person-friendly environment, being able to have things down there, maybe reviving the Utica Monday night thing down in that area to bring people downtown, not to have a hospital there.
All right.
So
let me ask you as well, and I should have asked you this first. You have not run for public office before, is that correct?
No.
But you have been involved in the community in many ways, I see in your pamphlet here.
Yes. I've coached in North Utica. I've coached baseball, football, soccer. I've coached boys basketball from fourth graders up to high schoolers at a CYO event, program. So I've been involved in the youth. I was president of Jefferson PTO while my kids were there for many years. I sat on the board for the steering committee that did the decision-making in the Utica schools. So I was on that board. I've been very involved with youth all my life. And one of the things, if you see on my brochure, is lately I've seen a lot of the people that I have coached through the years, young adults, dying from drugs. And it sickens me to see that when I know these kids and know their parents and know the heartbreak. You never want to bury a child. I had to bury my wife 17 years ago, and it was the hardest thing I ever did. Seeing my three kids that were 11, 15, and 17 sitting there not really understanding what happened. Yeah. So what a parent goes through with a child, having to do that, I can't even imagine. So that's one of the things that I want to really push is trying to get the drugs off the street. And it's my understanding that a lot of these kids, what's happening is they're getting injured playing sports, and they're on pain medication for the injuries. And then from that, once the pain medication is stopped and they can't get it anymore and they still need something because of the pain, they're going to drugs. Yeah. So we have to look at it from a lot of different angles other than just the drug angle from the street drugs. I think we have to look at what our doctors
are prescribing. How we're treating the injuries.
Yes.
Absolutely. Frank, I also want to ask you here on your brochure, you talk about consolidation of county services. This is something I think the county executive has tried to bring everyone on board for consolidation, although you're saying it's not necessarily to save money or to reduce staff. You think if there's opportunity to do it and it makes sense, pursue it.
Pursue it, yes. I mean, there are some consolidations that don't work. The Utica City School District consolidation didn't work, in my opinion. Okay? I think if you talk to the parents of kids that are being bussed all over the city, they would say going from the 3 high schools to 1 high school wasn't the best plan. So some consolidations do not work just based on the fact that your consolidation consolidating services doesn't mean you're actually going to save money. I think the school district, when they consolidated, ended up spending more money than what they were doing before, even though they had less buildings. So you have to look at consolidation more than just, okay, well, we're combining this, so we're going to save money. That's not necessarily the case. So you have to really look hard into it as what you're doing in the consolidating.
All right. You are in the Republican, Conservative, and Independence primary?
Yes, on
All right.
September 12th.
On September 12th, you are challenging longtime incumbent Emil Paparella, who is scheduled to join us actually in just a few minutes. I appreciate you coming in. Where can people find more information on Frank Gentile?
On my brochures, you could go to Facebook at Frank Gentile or a voice that we deserve, and look on there. And I've had people email me, frankgentile57@gmail.com, asking me questions where I stand on certain topics, and you can do that. And just look at me. I've been walking the streets every night. Hopefully I get to you. It's been an amazing experience. Like I said, I went to 3 blocks, and I had 7 people say, gee, why don't you put up a sign in my front yard? So that's the response I've been getting. Very positive responses. And I think that when you had asked the question, shouldn't it be easy if there's 80% of the people that don't want a hospital to get signatures? There's 7 people within a short period of time that I know would have signed my petition with no problem because they're letting me put a sign up in front so they agree with what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So the petitions wouldn't be difficult if the rules were different. Not being able to get my own signatures hampered me immensely. Mm-hmm. I think I come across as a nice person, and people are generally responsive, and I'm sure if I could get in a 1-hour spot 7 people to put signs up, I'm sure over the number of days I had, I would have been able to get all the signatures. But having to get other people to get the signatures for me is difficult.